2023 flew by. I mean, the year is already over, and a lot has happened with the US men's national team, which some you might have missed, and other stuff that happened you might have forgotten, because it was probably not very important or you were just busy. So today, we are going to be doing a full US men's national team 2023 recap. And boy, this is going to be fun. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the ultimate 2023 US men's national team recap. This is how it's going to go. I will essentially be dividing this into three eras. The Anthony Hudson era, which sort of felt like a Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode at times. Then we have the BJ era, where we sucked the life away from Mexico and Canada in Las Vegas. And yes, I used the word or the name BJ and the word sucked in the same sentence because I am very immature, and I am 100% not proud of it. And then we have the Berhalter era, which I'm just going to call it the return of those who never left. It kind of sounds like a movie sequel. I hope you had a great 2023, and I'm obviously wishing you a even better 2024. Regardless of how this year went for yourself, if it was bad, things will get better. And if it was good, hopefully it's even better. Hit the like button if you want to help us with the YouTube algorithm. If you do not, I will not judge you. Now, let me know in the comment section down below if there was anything I forgot on this recap, which I probably will forget something. With that said, let's begin. So let's start with the Anthony Hudson era. That was roughly from January of 2023 till June of 2023, so pretty much half of the year. The Anthony Hudson era essentially started January 3rd of 2023, which was when Greg Berhalter posted that tweet talking about how he kicked his girlfriend back in the 90s. That's now his wife. And in the tweet, he also mentioned that someone brought back that info to take him down. Later on, we would find out that it was actually Giovanni Reina's parents, Claudio and Danielle Reina. And you see, I don't feel like diving into this any further. It looks like it has been fully resolved. But because of a few happenings in this era that are not Anthony Hudson's fault, it's mainly why I called it the Keeping Up with the Kardashians era. Especially in this case, it was literally a family drama that all of a sudden was poured into the US men's national team for no reason. Pretty much everything about the story was awful, terrible, and everyone involved in it should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm happy they allegedly have it all sorted out. So after that happening, Greg Berhalter did not return as the US men's national team head coach to start the 2026 cycle, and Anthony Hudson was placed as the interim head coach. At that time, US Soccer also said they would start a coaching search process with Sportsology, an outside firm. And at that time, US Soccer also did not have a sporting director because Ernie Stewart left the job to work for PSV. Smart man. Very smart move right there. So in regards to Sportology, essentially the consultancy firm would help them find the people that would lead the way to the 2026 World Cup. You know, the most important cycle in US men's national team history. So of course, they were going to make the best possible hires, right? I don't know about that anymore. But more on that later. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Anthony Hudson started off in charge of the US men's national team in the January Camp Cupcake, where the US men's national team roster was made up of mostly MLS players with maybe 2 or 3 exceptions, and they would go on to face Serbia's domestic league players in a friendly, and then after that, the United States would also face Colombia and whatever the heck was that team that they brought. This camp was mostly a waste of time. Still in the Hudson era, let's fast forward all the way to March, because this is where things start to get interesting. This is when Hudson would have his first 2 competitive games in charge of the US men's national team to get us to the Nations League semifinals. The first one would be against Grenada away, where the US men's national team would pull an easy 7-1 win, avenging Brazil from the 2014 World Cup loss against Germany. True story. That's literally why we beat Grenada 7-1. I can assure you, I promise you. And if you say I'm lying, you're a hater. A match where Ricardo Pepi had a brace, Wesson McKennie had a brace, I had a brace. Not really, I didn't play. But Pulisic, Aronson, and Zendejas would be the other goal scorers of this match. But the interesting thing about it was that we started to finally see Gio Reyna playing central for the United States men's national team, and he was back with the national team after the Berhalter drama. So it seemed like that was resolved by Anthony Hudson, and it was. The only thing that could bring it back would be Berhalter returning, which eventually happened. Don't worry, we're getting to the part where he gets rehired, and I usually get diarrhea thinking about it. But moving on, then we go to game 2 against El Salvador in Orlando. The United States needed a draw to qualify, so we were not very worried about it not happening. Nevertheless, the US men's national team got a 1-0 win, goal scored by Ricardo Pepi off the bench. But here's the thing. While the national team was here in Orlando, the Balogun recruitment saga happened. And let's dive into that, because recruiting Balogun was probably the biggest legacy that Anthony Hudson left for the US men's national team program. To make things short, it was rumored that Balogun was upset that he got left out of the English national team call-up by Gareth Southgate. Instead, he got called into their U21s, to which he rejected the call-up, claiming he was injured, which he was not. Then a dear friend of the channel named CONCACAF Edgar on Twitter started to say that he was hearing rumors that Balogun was actually coming to Orlando to meet up with the US men's national team, the coaching staff, and US soccer executives along with Mickey Mouse to possibly join the United States. And Edgar was right. But then, in what was a brilliant yet creepy type of journalism, no, seriously, this was creepy as shit. USMNT Burner on Twitter was able to find Balogun's location in Orlando due to an Instagram post, and this is where things get weird. The shorts that Balogun was wearing on the Instagram post implied that he was somewhere warm, and that's probably Florida. I mean, I live in Florida, in Orlando, and I can assure you this place is the closest place to hell. It's like sometimes it's 80, 90 degrees during the winter, or close to the winter. But again, it was March. March here is super hot. But in the background of the post, USMNT Burner was able to identify the words, "here to chase a tail." And somehow, he was able to find a place named Pups Pub Orlando, which is a dog park and a sports bar. Unreal. Simply unreal. Very creepy, but tremendous work. On top of that, we had Tim, the grass man, who went on to investigate the grass where the US men's national team was training to see if it matched the grass in the post that Balogun posted on Twitter. Can you believe that? We actually had someone go test grass and see if it was the same. What is wrong with us? Let's also not forget that we had Greg Berhalter, yes, not Greg Berhalter, Greg Berhalter on Twitter go on a hunger strike that helped us, I guess, maybe. And then eventually the New York Yankees gave Balogun a jersey in Tampa. The Orlando Magic did the same. Americans know how to recruit. And obviously he met with the US men's national team coaching staff, players, and executives. So this was essentially how the US men's national team finalized the recruitment of Balogun that was going on for quite some time. I would say a few years. However, Balogun would only go on to commit mid-May, a month prior to the Nations League semifinals against Mexico. Still in the Anthony Hudson era, let's go to April. In April, we had two major events that happened, okay? So one of them was that US Soccer hired Matt Crocker as the sporting director that would replace Ernie Stewart. I don't have much to say here. He was born in Wales, the country, was working for Southampton in the Premier League when they got relegated, but honestly, it seemed like a decent hire at the time, but it turns out to be somewhat questionable at the current moment. I guess time will tell. I'm not going to judge him entirely yet. The other event in April was El Clásico, where the US men's national team domestic-based team plus Serginho Dest faced Mexico and their domestic-based team for a quick cash grab, you know, a quickie. That match ended 1-1 and Jesus Ferreira scored for the United States. We fast forward all the way to June, where a couple days prior to the US men's national team Nations League roster release, Anthony Hudson would resign to take charge of a club in Qatar. Which brings us to the BJ era. And the BJ Callaghan era was honestly awesome. He won us over. But unfortunately, it was extremely short. And it was also a bit of a roller coaster ride with a lot of ups and downs. With the departure of Anthony Hudson, BJ Callaghan was going to be in charge of the US men's national team for the entire summer, which meant he would lead the way in the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals, final, and the 2023 Gold Cup. The Nations League, we would have an A roster, our best players, and the Gold Cup, we would have somewhat of a C or D roster. It was just not a very good team. It was a bad team. With that said, let's start the Nations League because that happened first. We head into the Nations League semifinals with BJ in charge and knowing we would have a new US men's national team coach by the end of the summer. Multiple names were speculated and Jesse Marsch seemed like the favorite, or at least the one that would be the US men's national team coach. I'm not saying he's the favorite among fans, but it seemed like he was the one that the federation was going to go with. And you see, not many expected or wanted Berhalter back for many reasons. One, he did not seem good enough to take the US men's national team to the next level. He also had 0 signature wins throughout the entire 2022 cycle. His return would also bring some baggage with him. Drama that would have to be addressed with Gio Reyna. We talked about it earlier in the video. It seemed like the team needed a fresh start. Also, usually national team coaches don't do well in second cycles. And honestly, there are also many other reasons that I will not be diving into in this specific video. Now you may be asking, weren't you, Filippo, gonna talk about the Nations League semifinals with BJ Callaghan in charge? What the heck does that even have to do with Greg Berhalter? And understand, the semifinals against Mexico, it has everything to do with Greg Berhalter. Because Paul Tenorio from The Athletic released an article literally right at kickoff of the semifinals match against Mexico. I kid you not, this actually happened. Odd timing, right? Almost as if someone providing the information might have requested to release it when everybody else was distracted with something else. You know, like distracted with the US men's national team playing their biggest rivals in a semifinal match, you know, United States versus Mexico. Let's just release the news when everyone is distracted with another big event. Why would you do that with such great news? I mean, Berhalter's back. Everyone's happy, right? Why would you release it right there? Very odd timing to say the least, and that's all I have to say about it. You can judge it yourself. But anyhow, just to summarize it, they didn't renew with Greg due to the investigation that was going on, you know, back in January. They placed an interim coach for 6 months, hired an outside firm to help search for a coach, hired a new sporting director just to hire the same guy. Which, by the way, I'm not for Greg Berhalter being rehired, but if they were going to go that route, why didn't they just bring him back earlier? I mean, the investigation was done somewhat around like April or March, I believe, something like that. So just bring the guy back earlier, have him in charge during the summer. You literally announced him before the Mexico game. You had the news before the Mexico game, and he knows all these players. Why didn't they just bring Berhalter back before that? And that beats the living crap out of me. Maybe they were just trying to protect him because if he lost the Nations League and lost the Gold Cup, you know, criticism would have been far too much to handle. That's the only explanation that I can find. Okay, whatever. Let's move on to the US men's national team versus Mexico semifinals, and boy, this game was delightful. For the first time in my life, I got to watch the US men's national team toy around with Mexico as if they were playing some small Caribbean island. The United States of America got a dominant 3-0 win, which felt like it could have even been more. Christian Pulisic scored a brace, and Ricardo Pepi came off the bench to put the nail in the coffin for a 3-0 victory. Mexican players also lost their temper a few times, which led to 4 red cards in this match. 2 of them were for 2 Americans, Weston McKennie and Serginho Dest. However, that led to what might have been one of the most iconic moments in 2023 for the United States men's national team, where Weston McKennie kissed the US men's national team crest while wearing a torn jersey when he was leaving the field with a red card. A legendary moment in US soccer's history, probably my favorite of 2023. Then after defeating Mexico, the US men's national team went on to face the rude Canadians in the Nations League final. You know, the self-claimed CONCACAF champions. We had to play them to win a trophy, and guess what? We won, obviously. But understand that this match was tougher than the Mexico one in the semifinals, but the US men's national team still put out another great performance and ended up defeating Canada 2-0. Goal scored by Chris Richards with a header off a corner and Fullerton Balogun assisted by Giovanni Reyna. And the United States of America would lift the CONCACAF Nations League trophy once again. A fantastic tournament from the boys. That leads us into the 2023 Gold Cup, which we were sending an awful roster and, you know, it did not fail to disappoint us. And understand that this is not a Donald Trump endorsement, and I don't even mean to quote him, but let's just say that we were not sending our best. For this Gold Cup in 2023, the US men's national team was placed in Group A alongside Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Kitts and Nevis. The United States started off with a 1-1 draw with Jamaica, followed by two 6-0 wins against Trinidad and then against St. Kitts and Nevis. Jesus Ferreira dropped a hat-trick on each one of those 6-0 wins. I mean, give this man a Caribbean island and he will ball out. I mean, he is the pirate of the Caribbean, El Pirata. Actually, you have to give him a small Caribbean island because Jamaica is a Caribbean island and he didn't score against Jamaica. Maybe it's not really Caribbean islands that are his forte, it's just mediocre, or not even mediocre, a very weak competition. But anyhow, the US men's national team moved on to the quarterfinals where they would go on to face Canada, which also had a reserve roster. And this match against Canada was crazy. The United States pulled a late goal at the 88th minute scored by Brendan Vasquez to get a 1-0 lead. And it felt like we were gonna get that 1-0 win because there were like 2 minutes left. But then Miles Robinson decided to play volleyball for the second time in this match. And yes, he did put his hand on the ball twice throughout the match in the box. He got away with it the first time due to a push, but the second time, it was a penalty kick for Canada, and then Canada scored at the 90th minute with Steven Victoria when he converted a penalty kick, sending this match to extra time. And then things got worse. During the second half of extra time, Canada actually took the lead. Then the United States was able to tie the game with 5 minutes left, thanks to an accidental lucky own goal scored by Scott Kennedy. The US men's national team then advanced on penalty kicks to the semifinals. In the semifinals, the United States would go on to face Panama. The match ended 0-0, and then at extra time, Panama took the lead, but Jesus Ferreira would come to the rescue and tie the game with a nice goal actually, and send it to penalty shootouts. Just so Jesus himself and Roldan could waste their penalty kicks and allow Panama to advance. It was a disappointing Gold Cup, but it was more or less expected with the roster that we brought, and this, my friends, marks the end of the BJ Callaghan era, where we saw a dominant US men's national team side in the Nations League, followed by a mediocre US men's national team side in the Gold Cup, mainly because of the personnel, the players he had available. Which then leads us to the Berhalter 2.0 era. And this era started with multiple questions. Will Berhalter move on from his favorites? Will he ever give John Brooks another shot? Will he continue to behave like a child on the sidelines? What shoe is he gonna wear? How did that crap movie Barbie do so well at the box office? Can Berhalter win away in CONCACAF? Will he ever pull an upset? And most importantly, will he call up Gio Reyna? Will that issue be addressed and fixed? And obviously it was. But let me quickly summarize the Berhalter 2.0 era. So far in 2023, actually not so far because the year is over, he had 3 camps for a total of 6 matches, 5 in the United States and 1 away. Out of those 6 matches, 4 of them were friendlies and 2 were competitive matches. The first camp was in September and he did not call up Gio Reyna due to an injury. The only issue is that kept the Gio Berhalter drama well alive, and many were wondering if that would even ever be addressed, if things would work out. Besides that, the roster was pretty good, but the opponents were mostly crap. They were not good. No disrespect, no offense to Uzbekistan and Oman, but they're not good. The US men's national team started with an unconvincing 3-0 win over Uzbekistan. And the reason I say unconvincing is because 2 of the 3 goals happened in the last few minutes of the match while playing man up. It felt like it was a 1-0 win at home against the almighty Uzbekistan. Weah scored the first goal around minute 4, and then Pepe only scored at minute 91, the 91st minute, and then Christian Pulisic scored off a penalty kick around minute 95. The second match was a 4-0 win at home against Oman, a country that many Americans didn't even know they existed, and they probably can't point to Oman in a map. I'm gonna be honest, I sorta know where Oman is, but if you give me a map, I won't really be able to point where they are. And I'm not proud of it. The US men's national team got a 1-0 lead on this match during the first half with Balogun scoring. Then the other 3 goals were scored in the second half by Brendan Aronson, Ricardo Pepi, and an own goal from the Oman player. 2 matches, 2 wins, 7 goals scored, and none conceded. Not bad. Who we faced and where we faced them matters though, and these are terrible teams while playing at home. But a win is a win, so let's move on to Berhalter's second camp. And his second camp was in October, and the 2 matches were also friendlies. The big news of the October camp was the return of Gio Reyna and the end of the Berhalter-Reyna saga, the official end at least. For this camp, the US men's national team played 2 matches. The first one, we got crushed by Germany with a 3-1 loss. The United States did fine in the first half. It was 1-1, and the match was mostly fairly balanced. But in the second half, the United States was terrible, and let's say we just got lucky that we only lost 3-1. This was a fairly disappointing result as we were facing an in-crisis Germany with Julian Nagelsmann making his debut as a coach, and they even ended up tying Mexico a few days later in the United States. But this is not really a surprise when it comes to teams led by Greg Berhalter. I don't think he always has to do this, but literally he never gets the United States to punch above its weight, like ever. Maybe you can argue England in the World Cup, but I don't know if we were punching above our weight or England was punching below their weight because of Southgate, the English version of Berhalter with a British accent. The second match had the US men's national team facing Ghana, and this was actually a dominant win. And I'll say it was the first actual good performance from the United States in the second Berhalter era. So far, this is actually the only good performance of the US men's national team in the Berhalter era, the second one. The United States dominated Ghana and got a 4-0 win. The goals were scored by Gio Reyna twice, he had a brace, Christian Pulisic and Balogun all in the first half. But the most important part, or the most important win of this camp, was the return of Gio Reyna and him and Berhalter starting to get along once again. Last but not least, we have the November camp, which was actually the Nations League quarterfinals against Trinidad and Tobago, worth a spot in the 2024 Copa America and Nations League semifinals. So these were the 2 competitive games that Berhalter played, or not played, but managed the US men's national team. And how did it go? The United States qualified to the 2024 Copa America and advanced to the Nations League semifinals with a 3-0 win at home, and of course, we lost away in CONCACAF 2-1 to Trinidad and Tobago. Because this is what we do. We play away in CONCACAF, we lose, unless it's Grenada, or maybe Berhalter's the problem, who knows. But here are my thoughts. In the home game, I was there at the match, thanks to Brett Oppenheim. He invited us and got us there at the VIP section. It was amazing. It was a terrible performance from the US men's national team. We played man up in Austin, Texas for most of the game. I'd say probably 60 minutes. All 3 goals were scored in the last 8 minutes. And that's when, Trinidad and Tobago pretty much gassed out. So it was kind of an iffy 3-0 win and very much needed. Then we went on to play away. And I thought we were playing fine against Trinidad away until Serginho Dest, just acted like a kid, got a red card, and we ended up losing. And as I said, most of that loss is on Dest, but I had issues on how Berhalter adjusted, taking out Gio Reyna instead of maybe one of the forwards, Pepe or Balogun, just to try to hold on to that 1-0 lead, and then at halftime he could take out Gio because that was a pre-planned sub. But his in-game management wasn't good, the attitude and the response from the players to that crisis wasn't good, and we lost to Trinidad and Tobago. I'll just say this, having a 1-0 lead against Trinidad away and going man down, that can happen. You have to be able to hold that lead, and we didn't. So overall, that was embarrassing. It was not a good camp. The job was done. We qualified to the Copa America and to the semifinals of the CONCACAF Nations League, but it wasn't good enough. And this is how I'll close the video. The job was done. It was fairly disappointing, but it really felt like Berhalter was back, because with him, every achievement, even in the first cycle, felt like the bare minimum. It always feels underwhelming, and that we're not playing to the best of our abilities. The best performances I have seen the US men's national team, in the post-COVID era after 2020, it was literally in 2023 during the Nations League under BJ Callaghan. I'm serious, against Mexico and Canada. Maybe you agree with me. Let me know in the comment section down below. But it is what it is. Let's remain hopeful because 2024 is a massive year for the national team, and hopefully you enjoyed this recap. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. We'll continuously do these recaps every year. If you enjoy it, hit the like button, share it, and in the first week of January, we'll be doing a video with the US men's national team 2024 schedule so you can mark your calendars and know what's going to happen, and we'll have all the coverage as always. So I want to thank you all very much for the year of 2023. It's been wonderful here at the channel. We continue to grow, and it's all thanks to you, especially you that made it this far in this video. So I want to thank you all very much for watching, and have a great day.